Yeah, right. Okay. 5, 6, 7, 8. And we are operational. So, hey, man, nice to see you again. You too. And thanks for doing this. Yeah, well, I'm glad we're getting it done. It's getting down to the wire. Well, what else is new? But this place is great, huh? Yeah, everybody seems to like it. It's clean, bright. Yeah. So, let's get to it, shall we? All right, let's get into it. So, there's been a lot of buzz lately around quantum. And, I'm a dummy, right? And I know you know a lot about it. So I'm thinking maybe you can educate me a little bit. Now, would you say that quantum is it essentially just the cutting edge of science? Well, you're in luck because I love talking about this stuff. So, at a high level, quantum are phenomena that exist exponent to space-time. So where you have black holes and wormholes, there are also things like butterfly holes, Harrison's tank top, Barbara's eBay page. Wait. Butterfly holes? Yeah. What? I've heard of black holes. I've heard of wormholes. There's such a thing as butterfly holes too? Oh, there's all kinds of holes. Okay, but what is a butterfly hole? And in simple terms, in layman terms if you can. Yeah, okay, sure. Do you have an extra piece of paper? Right? Yeah, I mean, it's got a little bit of writing on it. Is that okay? That's fine. Okay, now, do you need this? No. All right. So I'm also going to need a pencil. Okay. So this is going to be simplified, of course, right? Right. Let's say that this piece of paper represents the universe. Now, you're here, and you want to get all the way over here on the other side. Now, with traditional technology, that's going to be impossible, right? Or at very least, impractical. But with quantum, you can essentially manipulate the fabric of space-time, and then, yeah, sure, you fold space-time, and then you can punch through. Whoa! What? What the heck am I looking at? Quantum. That looks like a butterfly. What's going on? That was sleight of hand, right? You had that piece of paper? Come on. That was like magic. That's not science. That was magic, right? This is a butterfly hole. Come on, man. But what is it? Can I see it? Sure. What does it do? There you go. Oh, there's my writing. I was kind of hoping this was a trick still. What am I looking at right now? I mean, this was a full sheet of paper a few seconds ago. Like, I mean, this is almost scary for someone like me. Like, help me out. Help me understand what I'm looking at right now. Yeah. Okay. Take, for example, a wormhole. This is known as an equal half phase transition, in that you can choose one of either time or space. Space in terms of location, the location you want to transition to, right? So using a wormhole, you can go to a different time or a different location. If you want to go to a different time and different location, you'd have to chain phase. Well, with a butterfly hole, you have a majority three-phase transition consisting of two parameters: time, location, or Ashton Kutcher's. Ashton Kutcher's? As in the world-renowned actor. Well, I wouldn't go there. So simultaneously, you can go to different time and location. Or for another example, you can go to different time and Ashton of your choice. Perhaps a Demi Moore Ashton, perhaps that 70s show Ashton. That seems overly specific. It sounds made up. Well, scientists actually discovered butterfly holes completely by accident. They were researching the age-old question, does there always have to be an Ashton Kutcher? Which it turns out there does. No. So, right after you'd said butterfly holes, you said something really strange, like, I think it was Harrison Ford or something? Harrison's tank top. Yeah. Is that like as in Harrison Ford or his tank top? No. Let me back up a bit. So over here on your side, It seems like your scientific community has kind of stalled. Uh, in its place, you have a system that rewards like predilection. On my side, scientific debate or debate in general is one of the most popular activities, not just in academia, but in popular culture. There's dozens of TV shows and websites that focus on working together to find all possible questions and then all possible answers and then the best answer. Wow, that sounds... I'd love to have that here. It's a little like what Rogan does on long form. He's willing to hear everybody out and allow everybody time to make their full case. But, I mean, it sounds meager compared to what you have over there. Yeah, and another thing is on our side, skeptics aren't marginalized, the serious ones. They service a critical function of the scientific process. But I don't want to stray too far off the topic. So let me just say, because of our robust scientific community, we tend to generate a lot of hypotheses, and consequently, the more fitting names are already taken. So we end up with names like Harrison's Tank Top. Oh, okay. That's kind of a good problem to have, I guess. Yeah, so Harrison's Tank Top. You're familiar with simulation theory, right? In fact, you probably talked about it with Paul when he came by here, right? Or did he talk about rockets and electric cars the whole time? But you didn't have to get permission or anything? There's nothing existential about a pit. So we just dug a pit. There's a pit. Nice pit. Pit is good. Took a break. Brad Pitt and I played Pitfall. Lots of digging. It was a pit. Then I pet a pit bull. Dug more pit. That's a pit. Deep pit. Good pit. Big pit. Jumbo pit. Garlic pit. Did you just say garlic pit? No. Pit jambalaya. Oh, come on. We even had an engineering class from a college come out and help us. Let me guess, from Pitt. No, USC. We're right down there. Yeah. We talked about a lot of things. But if you can, just give us an easy go-through, so this way this will be complete. Sure. Think back to video games in the 70s, right? Like Pong. Very simple. Then 10 years after that, you had Duck Hunt. Getting better, right? 10 years after that, you had games like Resident Evil. All these games improved by larger leaps and bounds over each other in the same amount of time. Right. And today you have ultra-realistic games, right? Complex games, multiplayer games, people participating all across the world, right? Millions of players. And you're on the brink of immersive 3D, using graphics that look as real as I look to you right now. In fact, the CGI used in movies, which is even better, can be used in games once the hardware catches up, which isn't too far away. And you're also on the brink of machine learning and AI, building out your environment as these games as needed, so they're potentially limitless. Yeah, we've played some of those games with the visors. Oh, man, they are incredible. And it took 50 years to get here, right? And the leap rate is ever increasing. So the difference between the 70s and 80s is less than, say, the 90s to 2000s. Oh, yeah, for sure. So with newer and newer hardware, immersive vision, AI, these environments, maybe 20 years, 25 years, will become indistinguishable with reality, with all this around us. Yeah, I don't know about 20 years, but yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, so now take tech like NewNet, Lattice, or Neural Lace, and these things could possibly even eliminate the need for local cap like PCs and consoles, right? So your brain is interfacing with remote hardware of scale, instantly vivifying information in the form of synapses and knowledge that what you see or what you think you see, what you're doing, or even memories. Yeah, okay. So Neural Lace, what's that exactly? Yeah, so instead of using a keyboard and mouse, your thoughts would directly query or activate programs. Much, much faster. You can think 100 times faster than you can type. Oh, okay, yeah. And how close to that do you think we are? You guys, 15 years.
Wow.
So now say 40 years into the future, maybe we can offload our minds, into a digital reality. In fact, it's possible. I don't know what it would mean for society, but it could be possible to duplicate ourselves and live in any number of realities at the same time. Perhaps you can be a space pirate in one, maybe a damsel in another, whatever you're into.
Damsel. I'm not going to lie. I thought about that more than once.
Okay, so you got it so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have this new tech, right? But you still have your grand questions. What is life? What does it mean to exist? So perhaps we would use this tech like we use mice, to run around in mazes and pull levers. Or how you use college students to test new psychedelics, allegedly.
Allegedly.
So you'd spend a week, let's say, and configure a new simulation. Perhaps one day you'd define 120 elements that will exist in this universe. Another day you'd configure the properties of physics, and so on and so on. So then you'd turn the simulation on, instantly letting those parameters express themselves. Perhaps 1 billion years is one day to the people that made the simulation, right? Eventually, maybe, in this simulation, an ice-bearing asteroid would hit coalesced cosmic debris, right? Fast forward more, a fish crawls out of the ocean.
Okay.
Fast forward much more, and that fish is now playing a game similar to Resident Evil. And we know what could happen 60 years after that, right? Now these beings in a simulation are making their own simulation. And they have the same questions about life and existence as you did.
Right. So this can go on forever and ever. There could be millions of simulations, and inside each of those simulations, their own millions of simulations.
Correct. So the simple equation we end up with is, and this is the basis for the theory, we are either real, the very first people who discovered the ability to create simulations, or we are some sub-simulation, or a sub of a sub of a sub of a sub simulation. It could be, because of the time differentials inherent in experiments, millions of levels deep.
Right.
So which is more likely? Being the very first? There's only one single first, right?
Right.
Or one of the perhaps millions of recursive layers of sub-simulations. It's vastly, vastly more likely that we are a sub-simulation. Therefore, the simple conclusion is that we are most likely a simulation.
Right. Now, is the time acceleration even necessary?
No, it's not. Everything would just have to run for billions of years, which is possible, But much like our own experiments, we use animals with shorter lifespans or higher doses to simulate a faster take-up.
Okay, yeah.
But it makes sense. If there's a goal, you want to find it quickly. And that means making the physics of the simulation so that it would lead to shorter timescales, like physics that would preclude 1,000-year days. It might exist, but it might just be waste or AI being, thorough.
Okay, yeah.
And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting we'd be moving faster. It would be a normal speed to those inside the simulation.
Yeah, there's a movie over here that sort of explains the time differential. We've had a couple, actually, both starring the same actor, Jim Carrey. One was Interstellar, and the other was Inception.
Oh, Jim is a serious actor over here, huh? On our side, he's a big action hero. Die Hard, Rambo.
Really? I can't see that.
No?
No. I was talking to Paul the other day, and he was saying on his side, Jim Carrey's a comedy actor.
Comedy? I can't see that at all.
Yeah, no, me neither. But wait a minute. That all sounds exactly like the simulation theory.
Well, it should. You asked me to describe it.
Oh, for some reason I thought we were already talking about Harrison's Ford.
Tank top. Harrison's tank top.
Right. Okay, yeah, I'm an idiot. Yeah, we were getting to that. So man, that was a really great description of the simulation hypothesis. So thank you for that.
So was that better than Paul's description of simulation theory?
Well, we shouldn't compare. My talk with Paul went other directions.
Oh, whoa! I feel like I'm made of ozone. Oh, man, Paul, I'm telling you, we gotta sneak into the factory, dude. We gotta do it, man. I gotta show you this new Easter egg. It's an Easter egg. It's called BattleBot mode. We watch the cars destroy themselves. You really gotta see it, man. Ooh. Oh, wait. Hey, where's my flamethrower?
BattleBot mode. I don't want to ruin cars, man. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Okay, fine. New game. Do you have an apple?
So you were saying that Harrison's tank top is different, or
No, it's an adjunct. But instead of re-envisioning simulation theory inside of it, it essentially has it as a dependency.
Okay, so it expands on it.
Correct.
Okay, go for it. You're looking around. Did you need to use the restroom, or?
No, I'm fine. I can though, right? If I have to?
Yeah, it's right through there. Yeah, just whenever. Let me know.
Okay, so we understand simulation theory, yes?
Yes. And just remember to keep the mic pretty close, about this far
Sorry.
away.
All right. So, consider, what would you say is the most sentient life, the most intelligent life, the most conscious of the predicament of existence?
I mean, humans, right? I mean, is this a trick question?
No, not a trick. I'd say so too, right? Humans. I mean, nothing we know of or even have trace evidence of comes close, right?
Right. My thoughts exactly.
Okay, so let's look at what we, as these highest order beings, do. We create, we invest, and we gamble, right? This represents all things.
We do more than that.
Not really. I mean, look, we all actually only do one thing, a single thing, and that is play games. Everything we do in life is part of a game. Everything.
This sounds like it's going to get interesting.
You have no idea where this is going, but it'll definitely be interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, hold on. Let me buckle up. Ow.
Okay. Consider games themselves, right? There are rules, players, spectators, maybe coaches, managers, assistants, and on and on and on, right?
Okay.
Consider building. Some people like to pour cement. Some people like to wire up lights. Some like to draw the building. Some like to plan the city itself. All of these people might work for different companies.
Okay.
Consider investment in assets like equities, in derivatives of those, hedge futures. Consider gambling. We'll use chance, skill, endurance, all sorts of things.
Okay.
Now consider, for example, to become a player on a sports team, you have to play a game. You have to take tests, right? Maybe a physical test, mental test, personality tests, and you have to perform well at those tests, as those tests are just games, something we try to perform well at. So to get to play a game, we have to play sub-games well.
Right. Okay.
Similarly, if a company is hiring, let's say, an engineer to help design a large building, that company is going to put candidates through tests. Maybe they'll ask to see the results of their previous gameplays, right? Like previous buildings they worked on. Or paper tests and scores. Maybe they'll ask the candidate how they would solve a particular engineering puzzle.
Yeah. Okay.
Consider an investor to be hired for a brokerage, right? He'd be tested to see how he performs under time constraints and with large sums of money. A game, right? If you're going to hire a CEO, you're going to hire one that has solved other similar puzzles, right? Or played similar games and won.
Okay. I can see how we play lots of games, but everything is a game? That can't be true.
Well, that isn't necessary for Harrison's tank top, but it's objectively true, right? eating, dating, shopping, even sleeping is all part of a game, right? You sleep to recharge your character so that you can perform at a similar level as other characters tomorrow, so that you won't lose your, let's say, job token. And that job token is important because if you play games well there, you can gather more spend tokens. And why would you want more spend tokens, right? Maybe you'd buy more wood to make a nicer house. A nicer house proves to potential mates that you're good at playing games and you can keep getting more spend tokens.
Wow. Okay. That got a little freaky.
Okay, so now let us even consider that besides all those real life sport games, buildings, investments, gambling, all that, we have a one-to-one equivalence in the digital domains. We have video games, right? Electronic leagues even. Sims, right? Where you can plan cities and buildings and families. A Second Life, crypto, points, even betting on the outcome of it all, right? I mean, in a way, equities are just a high-level gamble on a team, right? The C-suite players, hired talent, company strategy, and so on.
Yeah, okay. I agree with all of that. I mean, it makes me feel uneasy framing everything as a game, but that's probably correct.
Well, is it not at least possible that we are preoccupied by some sort of game for a large portion of our lives?
I'll agree, because I'm sure you can go on and on with examples if I said no, so.
Okay, and can we agree that at the very least, the higher up we go in terms of reward and power, we are game tested? The CEO, the engineer, the programmer, and so on, right?
Yes, definitely.
I mean, look, we could even talk about the sole core potential for all life, right? And human life, reproduction. We're not here to be a regional manager. Our sole unadulterated purpose is to reproduce.
Sure, the rest is essentially entertainment.
Yeah, and even when we reproduce, it's a game, right? We promote from person to parent. And if we do that well, if we take care of our offspring well, they can reproduce. And our effort is rewarded with promotion to grandparent.
Man, you're freaking me out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, so everything is incentivized in some way. There's rules, there's players, there's rewards, there's promotions. Yeah, I'm on board.
Okay, so now we remember the simulation theory, right?
Yeah.
What do those first people know? What year is it there? Have they ascended to a higher reality? Perhaps a fourth or fifth dimension?
Sure, it's possible. It's also possible that all these millions of simulations took place in 10 seconds and that first being, or whatever you want to call it, is just in the bathroom still.
Sure, okay. But it is more likely that time has probably passed, right? They have been doing this for a while, and they are much further along than we are.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're much farther along than us. I mean, this is what we have now is version 1, right? We're 50 years from really a version 2.
Right. Now, consider, let's say, if we found a way into the next dimension to elevate ourselves to become even higher beings. Don't you think in order to do that, we would have to essentially qualify, right? We'd have to pass a test.
Sure. I mean, we're going to Mars, and the plan is not just to send a bunch of randos over there.
Right.
I mean, we're going to be selective, right? We test them.
Right. So might a test to qualify from going from third dimension into the fourth dimension, might it be a test of our understanding of what and where and who we are?
Sure, yeah.
Might that test look like a simulation of what and where we are, right? A simulation of the universe. Or say a mastery of the third dimension. Like, how do you allow somebody into the fourth dimension if they don't fully understand the third dimension?
Oh, yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. That makes sense.
So a test to be given essentially higher powers, right? A larger role,
a promotion, if you will, might be to create a universe, right? A healthy universe.
Yeah. So we're just a test?
Hold on. We're not there yet.
All right.
It's possible, for sure. But look, that is the frame of the CEO, right? Or the builder. But consider games. These first people, or maybe they're higher beings, right? Might see this as a game where all of them, the players, are to configure universes to ultimately see who produces the most advanced beings or the healthiest worlds or whatever the metric of success is.
That totally makes sense too. Yeah.
Okay, so consider this game maybe as like a big lottery. There are tons of variables, and maybe only one person or a few of these beings can win, right? That it's likely that most of these first people, or whatever they are, don't win for each game or test or whatever, right? Similar to our own contests and games.
Okay.
So might these people offer side games themselves? You know, sports is a game, but betting on sports is a side game. So maybe they divide up their universes and create their own set of rules for their own subgames.
So like horse racing, you can play and win multiple ways, not just who comes in first.
Sure, in a way, but maybe more like a casino or a racetrack owner. So maybe whoever comes in first place gets a prize, right? Maybe it's currency or admission into a higher dimension. But most people think they probably aren't going to win.
Okay, right.
So now these beings say, I'm going to run 1,000 subgames on 1,000 of my planets in my universe. On this planet here, I'm going to divide it up and allow 6 people to play on it. The rules for the game on this planet are A, B, C. And the rules for this other planet over here are X, Y, Z, and so on.
So the being playing the larger universe game thinks they probably won't win, like the big prize. So they themselves create sub-games for money or for status or whatever. And they play smaller games they might win.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds exactly like something I'd do.
Yeah. So let's say this being dictates the rules for one of his sub-games are that you can only nudge life in a small amount. The more nudges you make, the more points are taken away. So let's say everybody starts with 100 points.
Okay.
And each time you nudge your partition of life, 1 point comes off. This is, let's say, another rule. Before the life form starts writing things down.
Okay.
After the life form starts writing, indicating they're at a more advanced stage, each nudge is then 10 points off.
Okay. And what would be a nudge?
Good question. Think of us right now as parents, right? We don't think of 50 million situations our children might experience and then have them memorize the correct response to each one of them.
No, of course not. You teach them the basic lessons so that they can build their own decision-making processes.
Right. We cover, the intrinsic topics of life, right? A few probable but basic future potentials, right? Like, let's say math. And then we're supposed to let them have their freedom. And they can make mistakes, especially when they're young, so that you're there to advise them, right? And just advise, right? So hopefully that they learn how to process completely new events that maybe we could have never even seen coming. So that's a nudge, right? We advise, but we let them solve.
Right. I got that, but these higher beings aren't our parents, so what's a nudge to them?
Maybe before writing is invented, we're talking about, say, punishing a known evildoer by striking him with lightning, right? So maybe a guy from one tribe over comes and kills some people, and you strike him with lightning. What that might mean to primitive beings.
Oh, all right. I see. So in that moment, they might form this thought that there's somebody that's watching or judging.
Maybe. And maybe it takes 3 or 4 goes, right? Maybe a nudge is forming a basic thought, like a tiny realization that eventually leads to the understanding of a new paradigm, like thinking ahead, right? Maybe don't eat all the fish, keep some for tomorrow. Planning ahead is a very clear break in intelligence.
Right, it is. I've read that. Or maybe a nudge is a whisper. Or when your group is in a bad way, hasn't found water for days, very scared, one of you stumbles upon water in a very unlikely place, right? In that instant, not only is a unseen guardian reinforced, but perhaps that person that found the water, perhaps there's a new concept, the concept of a hero.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the group is being attacked by a tiger and someone stumbles upon a straight branch with a really sharp splintered end.
Yeah, yeah.
Perhaps it is a dream that lingers into a thought that if the male stays with the female that gave birth to his daughter, that something larger, something beyond them can be created.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And we should remember, as third dimension beings, what we would look like to two dimension beings, right? We'd just be a line. So how a higher dimension being communicates with us might look, odd or confusing and in need of interpretation.
Yeah, totally. This all makes sense.
Right. So ridiculous sounding experiences could potentially be something we just can't understand in our dimension.
Right.
So what I've described is a methodology for the existence of God. In fact, the game could even conclude with the surviving players, the winning players, getting to meet their God, the one that nudged them in the best directions over millions of years. I mean, when an experiment is over, does the scientist not pick up their mice before they terminate them?
So
what it is saying is that it is most likely that God is the only thing that is real and that all of us don't exist.
Oh, no.
If you look at the Merculae or the Zoramus or the Genesis, they all begin to look like a subtle nod to the act of configuring a simulation.
No. So we're not real, and God is the only thing that's real. But this God is just a being?
Perhaps, but they would be the creator, right? They created all of this. And there's some interesting data around NDEs. You heard of this? Near-death experiences? About how people who are blind at birth have had NDEs and describe, seeing their own bodies for the first time.
Really?
Hovering over themselves, being taken up into a space of light, being greeted by beings of light that they knew in life, who passed previously. Very similar stories to what many other people cited individuals who have had NDEs.
Yeah, I'm familiar with NDEs. There does seem to be something happening.
Well, what I find interesting is, many people try to explain it as a byproduct of brain activity in some state near death. And it's like, okay, but what about all the other thousands of times we've dreamed? How can this type of brain product be relegated to near death only, right? We're all aware of the stories, so it's not like that reference material is hidden from dreams.
Yeah, right. I mean, you'd think if our brains can produce such a nice environment where we can converse with our loved ones, it would happen all the time. It would happen way more frequently.
Exactly. To me, if this abundantly happens near death, and who knows, might happen during every actual death, and it includes those who previously left here to the exclusion of those still here, that seems high functioning. That seems precise. I'd say there's more to it, maybe a pathway to the simulation.
Well, yeah. Okay, wait a minute. So like death is still part of the simulation?
Well, I don't know. It could be that before a simulation, we are in a storage medium and are stored in an orderly fashion. So then when we're all reformatted for the next simulation, we're inserted into it in some orderly fashion.
Okay.
When we die, we are pulled out of the simulation and stored back in our original order, which would be around others previously pulled out that we are familiar with because they were also in their original order.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see. But why wouldn't they be reformatted right away?
Well, it could be as simple as the simulation needs to end so that all the results can be analyzed at that time.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that so that's heaven, right? I mean that's like a tidy explanation. That and that makes sense. And what is even more interesting is the NDE visions of hell, right? Nobody says all their loved ones greeted them in hell, but if this is just a byproduct of the dying process, why wouldn't they also see people they know? Oh man, yeah. That's right. Well, even better. Let's say the simulation has a requirement to sequester the data that has led to bad results. It would make sense that these people, these bad results, would end up for long periods of time or forever, right, around other sequestered data whom they don't recognize. Because bad results would look more arbitrary. It's not an ordered process. And there's no original order to the sequestered storage. Right, that's hell. Oh my god, this is blowing my mind, dude. Oh man. That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. This it kind of brings to mind Cloud Atlas. Kind of. Maybe those characters, how they recur, maybe that's data that's stored in their original locations is doled out orderly, right? So they always kind of end up around each other in simulation. Wait. But if it's orderly, how can we marry someone from another country? Like, how can they end up next to each other in the storage? Well, when I said they were inserted in an orderly fashion, it may not be by zip code. It could be predictive, perhaps, like let's say by orders of fate. Oh, wow. Ordered by fate. Yeah, that totally makes sense, dude. This is so fascinating. You should write a book. Seriously. I mean, it's not every day you hear a theory that puts the simulation as proof of God and fate and heaven and hell. One could make a case that these simulations or tests or games, whatever they are to understand fate. And if we are formatted just before a new simulation and our completed successful results are returned to order, heaven, or error out in disorder, hell, then the quality of the initial format, or say the proximity to the configuration of your previous role, could address everything. Heaven, hell, life, death, even reincarnation. Right. Yeah. It is more likely that everything exists, right? God, simulation, reincarnation, everything. It makes more sense that everything exists and everything doesn't exist. Okay, well, that's 2 steps back. Well, the only way everything can exist is if none of it exists, right? Space-wise. The simulation could be or organic in nature, or it could be something beyond organic, right? Perhaps all this is a thought in God's mind. Man, you just blew my mind, dude. What's up? You gotta go? We just got here. No, actually, I need to use the... Oh, yeah, no problem. It's right... Okay. First door on your left. Okay, got it. There's a stacked switch. The bottom is a fan. Oh, yeah. Remind me to ask him about a show he does over there. Yeah, he does a live cast every morning. It's called the Quantum Sip. Supposedly where every sip is simultaneous. I don't know how that works. Some time thing. Probably make me feel like an idiot when I ask him. Yeah, I should have. Yeah. Yeah, in grade school I had a nickname. Yeah, they called me White Noise. Why is that funny? I don't know, grade school. Hey, did you pay attention to him when he was talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson? No, when he first got here, we showed him around. I guess Neil deGrasse Tyson and Mike Tyson are brothers. They're not brothers over here, are they? Yeah, look that up. That's not even the weird part. I guess Neil deGrasse Tyson is a cyborg. Yeah, so they were both boxers over there. And Neil took a beating. And, he's a smart scientist, and so I guess he had to replace some of his body parts with robotics. And now he's legally classified as a cyborg. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jaime and I were talking about your Tyson brothers. Yeah, it was getting hot. Yeah. So I want to get the hair off my neck. Oh, yeah. That's a interesting painting in the hallway there. Some sort of pig woman or something? No, it's actually called the Natalie. It's definitely interesting. I know the artist if you're interested in his work. That'd be great. Thank you. I'm still reeling from Harrison's tank top, man. I mean, next you're going to tell me the earth is flat. No. We have people here that actually think that, right? They don't believe the earth is round. Round? Oh, shut up. Why'd you say it like that? No. No, but seriously, though, there are people that think the planet is round? Oh, no, I mean a sphere. Sphere? Mother fudger, what? I thought you had a scientist over here that figured it all out for you. Don't say Paul was right. Oh, what was his name? Quinn? Or Quill? Can you look that up? So what shape is it? It is a inverse hexagonal fractal stacked cube. It's a little like the structure in Interstellar. A what? Is that the name? No, the shape is called a mecahedron. What the F? Did you find him? He's not sure if it's Quill or Quinn, so just put a Q in asterisk so it finds everything. And then put the word hedron, right? And then put he's Australian? I believe French. What's his last name? Bear. B-A-R-E or B-E-A-R? Well, it's French, so probably B-E-R-T. Did you find anything? No. Yeah. Well, maybe we found something. How could we be so wrong about reality over here? I mean, we're idiots. Why are we idiots over here? I mean, why is your side so significantly far ahead of ours? I mean, do you know where, was there an era or some events where there was a clear delineation of where our progress is split? That could be hard to pinpoint. There are a couple things I could point to that are striking in how essentially without anything changing, everything changed. What does that mean? I mean, everything changed, but nothing changed? I can think of two events where the only thing that really changed was our perception. So the first one would be this trial. I believe it was the Stillman case. Stillman, I don't remember her first name, but she was very sharp. I think she was perhaps in academia or maybe some sort of scientist. Anyways, she was accused of murder. Murder? Yeah, and 99% of the evidence against her was circumstantial, but they did find her fingerprint on the murder weapon. That'll do it. Usually, right? And she got away with it? Well, it turned out that the fingerprint was of a section that was a good match, so there was nothing showing that there was not a match, but it was not a full fingerprint. So like a partial? It was a good partial. It was almost complete, yeah. And now she defended herself. Oh, that's a horrible idea. They say not to do that. Yeah, well, she was very intelligent and very quick, and she had legal support, behind her, so. But anyway, the prosecution had a forensic expert and a fingerprint expert, and they both gave expert testimony. But then, Stillman could cross-examine them. And she asked them, yes or no, do you know if fingerprints are unique? And their answers were pretty surprising. Neither could simply say yes or no. But they did answer the same way, which was, as far as we know, yes, they are.
That's interesting.
Well, it turned out that that was not the way to answer this question.
Why? What happened?
Well, she asked a bunch of questions. One of them was, what's the average area of a fingerprint, right? And it turns out quite small. The bit of real estate at the tip of your finger is pretty tiny. Then she asked how many distinct patterns there were for humans throughout time. Turns out there aren't many. Loops, swirls, arches. And then she asked, how are fingerprints expressed?
Expressed?
How they are formed. They are formed by arbitrary actions of an early fetus, like how they move and what they touch, among other physical experiences of being a fetus. But importantly, it's only the actions that occur within a 7-week period. But essentially, they are created randomly.
Randomly?
Yeah, but it's a finite randomness, right? So there are limits. Most obviously is the very small amount of space they cover. Also, given that these movements only appear to create patterns within a small scope, like loops and whirls and arches, that in and of itself precludes that small space to contain, say, a McDonald's logo or the depiction of an F-16 fighter jet.
Right, of course, yeah. So literally anything can't just be there. There's restrictions.
Right. And these restrictions, combined with a small amount of space, narrow down the possible designs from a very large number down to a very small number.
Right.
So she made an observation that was essentially, if it is based on the experiences over a finite amount of time, then there's no linkage or tracking of designs from one fetus to another or across mothers, related or not.
No, of course not.
Right. So then she asked to each of them, they were examined separately, of course,
Right.
if they knew of any existing phenomena that would prohibit two fingerprints from being unique. And they said no.
Of course.
Then she asked if fingerprints were formed randomly. They said yes.
Oh.
So then she went back over the conclusions. Small amount of real estate, limited possible pattern formats, no interorganism conformity.
What's that again?
Hold on. And they are randomly formed. Interorganism conformity, babies being formed have no information about other babies already formed, being formed, or to be formed all over the world, all throughout time.
Oh, right, yeah.
So then she asked them a question about possibilities and randomness. And then she went in for the Neil deGrasse. If you were blind and you were listening to science books on tape and listening to all the biological facts about, how fingerprints are formed, their dimensions, etc., if that is your only knowledge and you've never seen a fingerprint, you've never scanned one, compared any, and no one has ever told you any more about them, and someone came up to you and said, is it possible, all right, possible that everyone in the world could have the same fingerprints? Just, is it permissible within scientific theory and math theory?
What did they answer?
Yes.
What? Everyone?
Yeah. If something is truly random, regardless if the possibilities are infinite or not, which in this case they're not, random and unique are not equivalent, right? Random permits it. Unique does not. But unique requires governance. It requires a mechanism to say, we just had this pattern over here in Rio de Janeiro, and this pattern here was used in Greece 300 years ago. But, okay, so this pattern here, this is good. Right? That governance doesn't exist.
Right, but everyone?
Well, in theory, it is permitted, right? There's nothing prohibiting it. But obviously that's not probable.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In reality, there's no way to know if any match, or if they do, how common it is, until we actually compare them all. And that result is instantly invalidated as soon as someone's born. See, it's not a formula, right? It's not an interconnected mechanism.
Yeah, I totally get that. So my fingerprints might not be unique.
Right.
Man, that's like all I had going for me.
So at the time, we had only scanned less than 1% of the population, let alone billions of people and trillions of fingers that have come before.
Would it be true if the area of the fingerprint were larger?
No. I mean, sure, they are more limited because, for us, they're maybe only 1.5 square centibezos. But when
Centibezos? What the heck is that?
Oh, right. You guys are imperial here, not metric.
Okay. There's the centimeter, but what's a centibezos?
Oh, yeah. Well, Amazon is a bit farther ahead on our side.
Okay. That's hilarious. That's the corporate takeover of the world, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there was some pushback, but, once it was all implemented and complete, I got to admit, it's pretty prime.
So what happened in the case? The lady in the fingerprint.
She was found not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Really?
Yeah. Well, most people, including myself, thought she was probably guilty. The more fractious thing that came out of all this was a wave of outrage at what appeared to be general unsoundness of forensic science, of science in general. But, by that time, there was millions of people in jail. And this crisis of credibility spread to other things, right? It was really a scientific awakening, mainly on the communication front, but the forensic awakening, it just devastated the judicial system at the time.
Wow, I bet. But what do you mean on the communication front?
Well, much of the science was essentially correct, but it was poorly communicated and disseminated. And this caused a much larger erroneous body of pseudoscience to be formed and used in the real world. We were certain of much less than was being utilized in court. You might say weaponized, but I don't want to get into mind reading.
Right.
I'm sure there were lots of people that had good intentions, but didn't understand that they were deforming science into what they needed in that moment.
A couple years ago over here, there was a big hubbub in forensics. Some forensic expert witnesses were caught performing some really sloppy tests.
Yeah.
And making really lazy inferences. They were essentially just overstating how certain they were with their findings. And they were just kind of essentially forcing it, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's typical, right? For a bubble to be created. And then they burst and everybody starts working on the next bubble.
Yeah. It was disappointing because at that point in time, I was really into forensics. And, I watched Forensic Files on TV and all that. And I even wanted to become a detective, kick down a door. Hey, mother sucker, got some trilobal fibers up in here? I get so jealous when I talk to somebody from a more advanced side, It's like, we just seem so dumb over here. I mean, just this morning, so take, for example, coffee, right? Every year is totally different, right? First, it's healthy. Drink 4 cups a day. Then California wants to slap a cancer warning on it, right? Then 8 cups are healthy. Then it's back to 4. And just this morning, the latest thing is? It's fine to have 25 cups of coffee a day. 25!
Yeah, coffee's wonderful.
But California still wants a cancer warning. So what kind of range is that? Cancer warning or 25 cups a day?
Yeah, that's quite a range.
I mean, so what? Coffee is not a settled science, I guess, right? I mean, good grief.
Realization that leads to change usually has to be painful, like with your forensic problems. Might have been swept under the rug. It might take a few more events like that to really come to a head and tip the scale.
Yeah.
But But this is a good segue into the other event that changed our perspective. And now you guys, you had here a horrific event. Planes were flown into buildings, right?
Oh, yeah, 110. Yeah, January 10th, 2001. Now, you guys didn't have that, right? A 110 style event?
No. Well, actually, I take that back. There were people that planned a similar 110 style attack on our side. They came to the U.S., but were stopped and caught at customs. Customs? Yeah, that's right. It was a facial recognition software supplied by a big tech firm to customs that identified the suspects and led to their arrest, and we were able to avoid that tragedy.
Oh, wow, they could do that? I wonder if they have that here.
Yeah, but getting back to your 110 event, from what I know of it, it similarly was not enough to galvanize you into true realization.
Realize what?
How easy weaponization is. For us, we had a different but similar event. Well known, but before my time, but we all learn about it in school.
Planes flew into buildings?
No, for us, let me set the table a bit. For a period, for decades, we had illicit drugs coming into our country. Every year, tens of thousands of people would die. At some point, there was some really potent drugs that weren't really being handled well in the, I guess you say in the illicit drug making world. We had opioids, 4X and car 4X, and these had really, really high, almost full bioavailability.
Okay, like...
So really easy absorption to the skin, intranasal, things like that, really easy. And they were potent. So just touching a milligram could kill you. I mean, like an invisible amount.
Okay.
And this went on for some time. Eventually the death tolls were 50 and 60 and 70,000 people a year.
Wow.
And everyone was kind of putting a Band-Aid on it, trying to figure out a way to address the symptoms, which were the addicts. Don't get me wrong, that was important, but without any way to stop it from starting, that's not what one would consider a real solution. The problem was that the effects were diverse.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Well, that all changed. A terrorist organization realized they could take the most potent form, CAR4X, which has a lethality of 1/10 of a milligram, and put it in smokers.
Smokers?
Smoke grenades.
Oh man, that is terrifying.
Yeah, we learned the hard way to pay attention and take things seriously while we have the opportunity.
What happened?
40,000 gone in one day.
What?
Yeah, this group let off a bunch at a sporting event.
Oh my God.
Besides the lethality of the smoke, just touching you, there was the panic, right? The falling, the trampling. In a way, I'm glad it happened before my time because I can't imagine how my brain would process that. I mean, it's almost like a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, and it's just made of really cheap drugs. I think we have a drug similar to that over here. I remember there was a single bust of it coming across our border that was estimated to be able to kill 60 million people. 60 million, just one bust.
And about how much was that?
I think it was like 250 pounds. They found it in a car. I think that was the weight because when I heard it, I thought, if I was a drug dealer, if I was a drug smuggler, I would rather make 5 50-pound backpacks, right? And then set them off separately. Because, the border's huge, right? I mean, you send 5 people with each with a backpack. If one gets caught, you still got 200 pounds to go. That's got to be a ton of money, right? It seems smarter. With a car in a lane, you get a good scanner or some dogs, and you lose the entire thing.
Yeah, sounds like similar stuff. But so before that happened to us, there was just lots of arguing about what to do, But that day marked a clear line in history, essentially to be serious. And that sounds ridiculous in a way, right? To take things seriously. But it became very obvious we weren't.
So what'd you guys do?
Well, many things, but specifically about the drugs. Cartels were labeled terrorist organizations, operations like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that in and of itself brought decades of feet dragging into clear focus. People, everyone, and not just in the U.S., were furious. Everybody got serious.
Furious about the attacks or about dragging their feet?
Both. Everybody realized that we actually have the ability to create real truths and not bureaucratic tar pits, where the future goes to die. But in an awful way, this allowed for more things to be solved.
In what way?
Well, so removing the cartels, they were really in control of Central America. Mexico didn't actually control its borders. It was the cartels. So all of a sudden there was this power and economic crisis. But with the violent cartels out of the way, it allowed the U.S. and Mexico to work together more productively.
And what happened?
Well, now Mexico is the premier entertainment destination in the Western Hemisphere.
Really?
Yeah, all sorts of different types of amusement parks, resorts, huge areas for... They have something like a 500,000 acre paintball field. And it's common today to have large companies put on paintball battles.
Really?
In fact, one of the biggest ones, every year, these two large tech firms have a paintball battle. It'll last weeks. That's maybe like a week. It's very cool. Yeah, they have quadcopters for troop movements and everything. The whole nine Jeffs.
No way. That sounds awesome.
It is. And it's televised too. Yeah, so now Mexico, per capita, is an extremely wealthy country. Because it was, at that point in time, it was next to the wealthiest country in the world, the U.S. And with the cartels out of the way, it essentially became a blank slate for the Mexican people to decide what they wanted their country to become.
Wow, amazing. Well, that makes sense, considering your neighbors with, like, the wealthiest country, Very smart.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of ideas, actually. I remember one of them, I think, was something like the investors were pitching, because they had a lot of space, that they could cover half their country in solar panels and wind turbines, and essentially the entire population can get an income and only work for a couple months out of the year. But they had to live abroad for most of the year.
That sounds pretty good, too.
Well, at that time, we just happened to be coming online with Gen 4 nuclear, which was being fast-tracked, so it put the kibosh on all that solar and wind stuff.
Gen 4?
Yeah, I believe you guys are actually bringing them online here, too, if I remember correctly. This would be like molten salt or molten lead. It's wonderful. It marks the first truly safe and beneficial use of nuclear energy. No meltdown risk, small, portable, very safe. Gen 3 is actually very safe too.
What about living next to them? People don't want kids with 3 eyeballs.
Well, actually, you can live next to a Gen 4 reactor for 100 years, which you wouldn't do anyways, right? Because it's a long time. And only have 1/5 of the radiation of a single flight from LA to New York.
Wow. So what do we have now? Here. I know it's not the best, but I don't think they're that safe.
You guys, any issues you guys have had to date were from Gen 1 and Gen 2 reactors, which are actively contained. You have a lot of Gen 3 reactors and are extremely safe. I believe you've had no issues with them whatsoever. Gen 4 is even better in that it maintains passive containment for meltdowns. So even if all your power is lost, it reverts to a safe state. So Gen 3 has been proven safe, and Gen 4 is even safer than that.
Okay, wow. Is there a Gen 5?
Yeah, there is. It's the same as Gen 4, but it's Bluetooth compatible. The other great thing about Gen 4 is that it actually consumes all your Gen 1 and Gen 2 nuclear waste as fuel. So it eliminates your nuclear waste stockpiles.
Oh, wait. It eats up our existing nuclear waste?
Yeah.
So we can get rid of all of that old dangerous nuclear waste once and for all.
Yeah, it uses it for fuel. Could probably power the planet for 1,000 years.
You guys use that?
Oh, we're on Gen 12 now. But most people just carry PFRs for their power needs.
PFR?
Pocket fusion reactor. It can charge whatever you need it to. Car, jetpack, computer, whatever.
It fits in your pocket?
Yeah, it's like half the size of your mobile phone there.
Mobile?
Right there.
What? This?
Yeah.
Oh my. This is a micro SD card, a memory card.
Memory? Damn, that thing's big. That must have 100 petabytes on it.
What? No, this is 16 gigabytes.
No. You have to be wrong. That's not gigabytes.
Yeah, look.
What the heck? This is an antique, man. Oh, man, the guys would get a kick out of this. Oh,
so wait, so your mobile phones are twice as big as that?
No, ours are implanted in our ear. I just assumed you guys were behind us, so that must have been a mobile phone.
Your phones are in your ear?
Yeah.
How do you charge them?
Well, they rarely need a charge, but everything charges on RF, so essentially like Wi-Fi.
Oh, damn, Wi-Fi charges your devices.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, we never have to think about charging things, and PFRs are wireless.
Oh, that's awesome. I just had a conversation with somebody about where tech is going. Who was that? Do you remember who that was? No. I just talked to him. Well, but why haven't, we haven't heard about Gen 4 over here.
Really? Well, I know Canada and Russia and China are all engaged with it. And I know your Rick Perry just made a sort of fast-track testing site for the iteration process, to bypass regulations.
Bypassing regulations doesn't sound good. I mean, maybe you're not aware, but we've had some pretty famous nuclear accidents in the past.
That's ancient tech, man. No. That's like referring to an old mainframe computer compared to a new smartphone, And it's actually just a sort of safe site that's monitored for iteration testing. If iteration testing is clogged up with regulations, then progress will take 50 years.
Regulations are to keep us safe.
Right, and the end result would be regulated. But you cannot treat a small test the same as an end result. Mind you, I'm not referring to safety, just final regulation.
Oh, okay. I see. I haven't heard of any of that.
Yeah, you should talk to your Taylor Wilson, or I know your Bill Gates, especially. He knows a lot about it, about safe nuclear.
Really? Bill Gates and energy? I had no idea. I really only ever hear our celebrities, and they say solar and wind is our only hope. They even they got together and made a music video, a ton of celebrities, and it featured a spaceship beaming down solar panels and wind turbines to Earth for us.
Oh, yeah. None of that's well thought out at all.
No? Paul has a solar roof product already. And of course he's got his electric cars, and he's had some very smart, he's had some good,
Oh, yeah, you're right. It didn't hurt. Thank you. I've always wanted to pierce it. But to continue, no, we tunnel straight through to China. It's so much shorter. And halfway there requires no fuel at all because of gravity. Tunneling through the crust is a bad idea. The crust is unstable. The crust is mostly made of vegetables. That's why farms are located on the crust.
Okay, that sounds right.
Yeah, you just got to think about it. You just got to use your noggin. Right up here, Paul.
Yeah, can you put that away? It's making me nervous.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry again about your arm, Paul. It really does have a hair trigger.
You have a holster for it?
No, I just put it in my underwear.
Well, anyway, many people think solar is the answer here, which I would agree. And Paul does have a very nice solar roof product.
Well, okay. But as I understand it, your people are mainly concerned with CO2, right?
Right.
Okay. How many houses are there just in the U.S., right? And just do the lower 48, right? Leave off Hawaii, Alaska, and Greenland.
Check that out. Yeah. Like 130 million?
Okay. So now you must extract from the earth resources to make solar tiles for 130 million roofs. Are your excavators and earth movers electric?
No, I don't think so.
And since it's solar,
you need batteries, right? So now you have to excavate lithium for 130 million large house batteries. Assuming you only need one battery for each house, right? Maybe 260 million large house batteries. That takes drills and earth movers. Are those electric too?
Right, they're not.
Then shipping all that raw material to plants to process it, right? Are all those trucks electric? Are all those plants solar? Are the people that work in those plants driving their electric cars to work?
No, probably not many of them.
Then shipping that process materials to manufacturers who create the end products. How about their factory and that shipment and their workers? Is all that electric?
Probably not.
Okay, so now you need to remove 130 million roofs, right? 90 million of which are probably in perfectly fine shape or even brand new. Are the guys that show up to tear off your old roof, are they driving an electric dump truck? How about the guys that have to come in and install the new roof and batteries? Are they all driving all electric work trucks?
No. Okay, I see.
So now you have a landfill with 130 million roofs. Do you have enough landfills? Probably not. So now you have to excavate new landfills with your solar excavators?
Right.
And how long do those solar panels convert electricity for? 20, 25 years?
I think they have a lifetime guarantee.
No. That is for the substrate to act as a weatherproof membrane. So as a roof, but not the conversion cells themselves. And how long do those lithium batteries last? 10 years? So you have to repeat that whole process every 10 or 15 years? So think about it. In order to have continuous energy for 100 years, you've now committed to maintain hundreds of millions of installations spread out all over the country, right? Hundreds of millions of batteries every 10 years and hundreds of million roofs every 20 years, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And the cost equation is lopsided with solar, right? You can pay it off in 20 years, but by that time, you've already had to replace the batteries, right? And now your solar cells might need replacement soon. So you're not saving money with solar. And if you think about it, you're actually just paying up front for all of your electricity for 10 or 20 years. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right? Everything has pros and cons. And if somebody is acting like it's all pro, they're lying or they're stupid.
So how comes the celebrities didn't mention any of this?
I don't know. Celebrities have a lot of money, right? So maybe they're invested in lithium or providing venture capital to solar projects. See, on our side, we have some laws around that, right? Depending on your influence dimension, you have to be opaque about investments or foreign agency and things like that.
Oh, so like follower count?
Yeah, but more than that too, right? You might have written a script or a book, but not be on social media. So viewership, sales, and so on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but anyway, that all sounds like a monumental CO2 outlay, right? And you'd probably have to start the recycling and replacement process on the 130 million roofs and batteries before you're even done installing all original 130 million home roofs and batteries. I'm not certain that you could ever become zero emission. I mean, maybe after 100 years, but you'd have to expend 200 years worth of CO2 to get there, right? I mean, all those roofs that did not need replacing, all those batteries that didn't need to be made, it's a sort of a chicken and egg problem.
Well, it does sound like somebody should calculate what the CO2 expenditure would be to do these things.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned cars and offices, right? You probably have like 300, 400 million cars, and all those would need huge lithium batteries. I doubt every battery company in the world working together couldn't make 300 million lithium batteries for cars in 10 years. And that's just the US, right? So lithium mining in general, it's always a bottleneck, right? It's not emission free. Lots of things need stuff, and that stuff is in the ground, right? A lot of it, at least.
But what about...
And look, wait, even your Tesla recently expressed concern about shortage of battery metals, and that's for the meager production capacity you have now. I mean, you need a major investment in battery metal exploration and mining.
Well, I believe some countries have made a lot of headway. You know, Costa Rica and Germany.
No, if you really look,
Germany uses very little green energy, when you count production and delivery and batteries and how they're made and all the replaceable parts and, how they have to be maintained. Take wind turbines. They don't just grow out of the ground. And Costa Rica, they might be more balanced, but Costa Rica didn't build those turbines, right? That CO2 is on some other country's ledger, right? Digging up all that metal from the ground, building them in factories, bringing them over on ships, making special trucks to carry them. And eventually, maintenance costs will be upside down. They'll determine that it's better to replace them all with new ones that are twice as efficient. Again, CO2 on some other country's ledger.
So you're saying we should use Gen 4 nuclear?
Well, for houses, of course. I mean, why would you expend all that CO2 to do it in a way that's just as emission-free, right? And it drops into existing nuclear sites, and later it can drop into existing coal plants, right? And taps into the existing grid because they're very small. Deferred energy like solar and wind are very difficult because not only do they require their own millions of parts and maintenance, for those parts, but they also require batteries. Batteries have a short lifespan.
Well, okay, so why are you not anti-electric car?
Having a pure electric platform for a vehicle is great. Electric cars have an infinitely higher resolution, so they could be made much safer, in terms of accidents. Having a gas to electricity conversion on a platform, that's just wasteful, right? There's not a lot of space. So think 5G, screens, entertainment, communication, that's all electric, right? So it's like, would you take a small gas generator to charge your phone at a picnic or a USB battery? So for that size/portable platform, it's way more efficient, right? On our side, driving 300 miles is almost considered a vacation in itself, right? Because it's like being in a luxury train compartment.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, no worries, no liability. It's pure relaxation, whatever you want it to be.
But you are anti-solar.
No. Solar has its place, off-grid living, off-planet living, remote projects, light craft, continuous research drones, satellites. But those are all temporary, right? Solar isn't doing anything for at least half of a 24-hour day, right? Because of night. So that's 2 weeks production out of a 4-week month, minus bad weather, minus efficacy of panel position. It's just a lot of stuff that would prohibit optimization, You'd have to over-provision and interconnect just to compensate.
Sounds about right.
And look, here's the thing. If your country ever can say at any point, we're running on batteries, that's not good, right? That's closer to failure than success. That's precarious. But batteries are more important than solar because they have actual and immediate use cases. Cars, laptops, phones, backup computers, and so on. Solar, that's an alternative use case, right? And it just can't beat Gen 4 or fusion.
What about solar not on roofs, but in fields?
Well, that would require a lot of land, and to be able to find that amount of land means your solar station's going to be far away. You have to dig up trenches to connect it to your existing grid. And again, you're still going to have to excavate materials for billions of panels. You're still going to have to recycle them every 20 years. You're probably still going to need batteries somewhere, either at the station or at the house.
I don't know, man. I guess the devil's in the details.
Yeah, and isn't that weird that nobody's mentioned the details? The key is simplicity. The least amount of moving parts, and ideally without being subject to blocked timeframes. If you're creating an elaborate dance around the distance to and position of the sun, you're positioning yourself as a subordinate, right? Potentially a victim. Gen 6 nuclear is when you start to see meaningful miniaturization, and then you have fusion. Only 15 or 20 years after we were humming along with Gen 4, there was a breakthrough in fusion.
Now with fusion, the hard part is containing the reaction, right? I mean, I think, aren't they trying to use magnets to kind of float it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're going to kick yourself. We put our early reactors in space where there's practically no gravity.
Oh, man. That is smart.
Yeah, so that made it much cheaper. And we would just beam down energy to base stations, and use it and store it.
How would you store it?
All types of traditional methods, batteries, flywheel, pumping water.
How would you beam it down? Like lightning?
Well, yeah, but I think they went through all sorts of things. I think they mostly used microwave, if I remember right. But there were a bunch of wireless paradigms. I think they did lasers, light.
Wow.
But coal is important too, You still have to stockpile coal because coal is a direct energy source, right? You can just burn it. Very low tech. Not much can go wrong. Batteries have a very short lifespan. Batteries and integrated circuits in general won't survive something, like a CME or an EMP.
Right.
New nuclear, safe nuclear infusion are great investments because look, you're not going to put windmills on a spaceship.
No, right. But you could use solar panels on spaceships.
Not really. It's novel if you happen to be close to a star, so for not for interstellar travel. But it has a lot of moving parts, which means a lot more can go wrong. Gen 6 and Gen 7 nuclear is when you have something very small, self-contained, put on a spaceship, taken to other planets. A spaceship can be powered by a single H or X-frame orb, and you could have 3 or 4 or 10 spares on board. You know what I mean? But a huge solar structure, like a huge solar sail, that's complex, that's fragile, that's precarious. Large-scale solar is the result of poor decision-making.
Man, I am so jealous of how far ahead you guys are. And all this stuff.
Oh, I just thought of another substantial contributing point in our divergence. It's when we solved P versus NP, what was a long-standing unsolved mathematical computation problem, which, funny enough, turned out to be quite a simple equation consisting of P2 over...
Eric Weinstein. Oh, my God. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
Eric was the guy I was referring to earlier that I was talking to about tech, similar to what we were just talking about.
Oh, I didn't know you knew Eric.
Yeah, so you know him too.
Oh, yeah. We have great conversations, very deep conversations, but not somebody I like to debate.
Too smart for you, huh?
No. He's very bright, but the problem is he's just too damn charming.
Charming? What does that matter in a debate?
Well, for instance, the last time I was over at his place, we were having a debate.
What was the debate about?
Something about the nature of nature. I don't know. The topic wasn't important as that I was winning, right? I mean, I had his logic boxed into a corner. So then all of a sudden, he reaches up into the ceiling, right? And he pulls down a light bulb, right? A fluorescent tube. And then he starts playing it.
Oh, that's impossible. They're sealed. That's impossible. You can't play those.
It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. The guy can make a harmony with anything. It's crazy. Maybe I would debate him in a cement box at the bottom of the ocean. And I'm not even sure about that.
Yeah, he is very talented, at making sounds and rhythms. He's got a natural ear for it, but it's hilarious. So what else do you guys have now? I love hearing about all the advancements you have over there. It's sort of like a preview of what we'll have here, eventually, hopefully.
Well, we fairly recently we've switched to vertical farming.
I think I heard that. Yeah, that's better than what we do here, right, on land.
Oh yeah, a great deal.
How so?
Oh man, in every way. I mean, we use a lot less land. Maybe 0.1% of the land we did was surface.
Wow.
We're able to grow anywhere in the middle of big cities, so there's less transportation of the food for distribution. We cut water use by almost 90%.
90%?
Compared to surface farming. Because of evaporation and waste and all that.
And agriculture uses the lion's share of water.
Right.
So that's incredibly helpful for people.
Yeah, and that's with year-round crop production, right? So we're not limited by the season. There's less spoilage, 90% less petroleum, things you use in fertilizer, transportation, and all that. We have lab-grown meats.
Wow, really? But okay, so wait, but don't you need the sun?
Well, you can simulate the frequencies with special LEDs.
Okay, but that's more power. I mean, we get that for free with the sun.
True, but at great cost, right? Water evaporation, transportation, pesticides, all that stuff, right? And LEDs have a very modest power need, and we're using nuclear, so. Anyway, this allowed us to relocate a lot of food production, right? And around these farms, which are just buildings below and above ground, a new ecosystem of food services cropped up.
Cropped up. That's right. Oh, that's right. Healthcare. There's a lot of talk over here about socializing healthcare, which I'm all for. Now, you guys have something like that, right?
Well, sort of. For you to do that now wouldn't be good.
Why? Don't you have it?
Yeah, well, much like your agriculture, your healthcare is all upside down right now.
Oh, so you're saying.
I'm saying socializing what you have now would be a mistake. Because what you have now is incredibly wasteful and counterproductive.
Okay, I see. How so exactly?
Well, what you have now came about naturally during a very manual, low-tech period. It would be impossible to socialize what you have now and achieve better outcomes. I suspect socialized medicine here, where it's done, has worse outcomes, like survivability, right? And I also bet that the advancements don't primarily come from those places, simply because there's usually not much money left over or incentive.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. It's not known if socialized medicine would work well, if you can say it works well, if, say, the United States had not existed.
Yeah, well, the most critical aspect of healthcare is time, and you want a system that always improves on time. Cancer metastasizes because of time. Time. So you can't have 10, 15, 20-week wait times. That's death, right? You have to use capitalism to iterate to the best product. Iterate to zero wait times. And also iterate to cures, right? I mean, you guys are fairly far behind, You're still treating XX and XY monolithically.
So what do you have over there?
We don't have large hospitals every 10 miles, right? Most everyday healthcare is taken care of at a neighborhood store.
Store?
Like the one I passed by it on my way here.
Oh, so like a little corner store that has a pharmacy in it.
Probably similar, yeah. Just a regular, probably a national chain or something, right?
Yeah.
Surgeries are performed in pods at those stores, remotely operated by surgeons all over the world.
So a surgical pod.
Yeah, and there's at least one nurse is always with you, and one nurse is always available to help you prepare, to get in and out and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
And if an emergency comes up, the pod itself can attach to an octocopter drone and take you and the nurses to a center with many more resources.
Oh, so it's like an ambulance.
Yeah, similar. In fact, one normally goes to accident scenes, just in case.
With nurses?
Normally. So in those cases, I think they leave with one nurse because they don't wait to be called by someone at the site. They hedge their bet, right? They just go there. But sometimes, most of the times you don't need one.
Yeah, right.
So if one is needed, and if more than one nurse is needed, then some other response agent already on the site, from AP, will go with, from like fire and rescue, police, whatever you have.
Yeah. Oh, right. I remember you telling me about Assist and Protect before. Yeah. That sounds amazing. So if one needed to be taken to a large, like a hospital, how long would that take?
Well, those octocopters can move, man. They totally avoid traffic, right? They go as a sparrow flies. But it's like 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But you have to remember, it's a very smooth ride, right? It's an octocopter. And you have way more advanced environment than in your typical ambulance, right? You can actually perform surgery in flight.
No way, during flight.
Yeah, yeah. But so to the larger question, we don't have semi-frequent congested buildings. We have fast, flexible care that is closer.
But you do still have hospitals.
Yeah, and they have merged with medical schools, so people become surgeons and doctors and nurses faster, right? And healthcare costs have dropped significantly.
I bet.
You don't have doctors getting $200,000 in debt or taking 12 years to practice. If you socialize what you have now, you'd essentially be condemning yourselves to exactly what you have for a very, very long time, because it will zap all of your R&D money, right? Which from what I understand provides the lion's share of advancements for the entire world. So if you guys did it now, healthcare worldwide would be affected, right? It would likely stagnate.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, what we have now is pretty crappy, you know. We have 100,000 people die every year in the U.S. just from medical errors.
Right.
Errors. That's like a passenger jet crashing every day in the U.S. alone. Like, people don't notice it because it's diluted across time, And we have people begging for that.
Yeah, socialization can be less risky if there still exists somewhere that has a robust capitalist system that incentivizes innovation.
So you have...
I mean, even we can do better. See, it's hard to socialize something that has, say, parts of the puzzle that require 10 years of someone's life before they can even participate. You can't escape the value of one's time. Risk equation is imperative to understand if you are going to socialize something.
Oh, yeah. Paul came by the other day and we talked about risk equation. It's hard to argue against.
How's he doing?
He's good. Yeah, he's good. When I talk to him, because of his VC background, I get a sense of what's going to happen here across the next 10 years, what it's going to look like. And then when you're on, I get a sense of what's going to happen, like the next 50 years, what that might look like. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. He's a character.
Yeah, he is. My brain is fried. Wow, look at that. It's been 3 hours. Jeez. Wow, that seemed like half that. This is a good place to end things.
Okay.
Thank you for making it, man.
Thank you again for doing this for us, man.
How does dinner sound?
Sounds great. Thanks again. Had a great time.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I'm just going to get my stuff and we'll go.
Okay. We are done.
Biatch.